Welcome, everyone. It's Cannabis News. I'm your host, Joe Klare. It's January 20th, 2020. The show, as always, is presented by the Marijuana Times. MarijuanaTimes.org is where you can find us. A new week here at the Marijuana Times. Of course, make cannabis great again if you want the swag, particularly this hat. MakeCannabisGreatAgain.com. Go check it out. Today we're talking about a new congressional hearing, or a recent congressional hearing, rather, on marijuana law reform on a federal level. Also, marijuana delivery giant Eaze is in some trouble, some cashola trouble, some Skrilla problems, if you will. And marijuana legalization may hit 40 states this year with at least some form of cannabis legalization. All that is coming up. But first, of course, Cannabis News is brought to you by Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides grow safe and poison-free with Natureside. Don't use harmful chemicals or banned pesticides. Instead, use Natureside. Don't use yucky things on plants or products that people are going to be ingesting. That's awful. Use organic, all-natural pesticides like those you can find at Natureside. Nature-side.com, a proud sponsor of Cannabis News. Thank you. Natureside. First story by Jason Sander at MarijuanaTimes.org. Congressional hearing exposes federal limitations on cannabis research. This hearing went down January 15th of this year. The Congress held a hearing to discuss how current federal regulations are inhibiting much-needed research on cannabis, the legal status of cannabis medicine as a Schedule I drug at the federal level, and regulators have admitted this classification halts research of the plant. The meeting comes after the Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on Health proposed reforms to these restrictive cannabis laws in the United States. During the hearing, members questioned agents and witnesses from federal agencies, including the DEA, the FDA, and the NIDA, which is the National Institute on Drug Abuse. The majority of questions revolved around hurdles to proper cannabis research. Congress and committee members expressed the restrictions these federal agencies place on cannabis, thus halting the research that is needed to pursue nationwide reform of cannabis laws. They also expressed how federal laws haven't been keeping up with the state regulations and state laws. Energy and Commerce Committee Chairman Frank Pallone said, quote, "While state laws and public perception around cannabis and its derivatives have evolved over the years, much of the federal framework that regulates cannabis has stayed the same, i.e. prohibition." So, progress. I mean, at least they're talking. I've said many times that none of this stuff is changed without first the discussion getting going. And because there's talk so much. Politicians, lawmakers just love to talk. They're going to talk about this so much, and they pick at this and pick at that and say, well, what about this and what about that? And if things they've already talked about, they're going to talk about again. It's horrific. So with all that talking needing to happen, or at least is going to happen, I don't know how needed it is, it's good to get that talking going. If there's going to be a lot of talking, get started. Start running your mouths at each other. Whatever gets this closer to what it needs to be. Federal law needs to get out of the way. The federal government needs to get out of the way of the states and let them do what they're going to do. This is useless. Now, it was always useless. Now it's beyond useless. Because now the states are saying, hey, we don't care what federal law says. We're going to legalize it. So what's the point? What's the point of the federal law? The states are going to ignore it and do what they want to do anyway. So just let's move on. God, it's so... But the talking. Oh, the talking. You all think I talk a lot on here? Oh, man. The talking is going to revolve around federal legalization. If they transcribe it all, it's just... They're going to kill so many trees. They're going to kill forests full of trees. Hopefully it will just be digital copies. So we have to destroy a forest to transcribe all of the talking that's going to happen over federal marijuana legalization. Oh, it's too... I'm getting a headache thinking about it. We'll move on. It's next story from TechCrunch.com. Marijuana delivery giant Eaze may go up in smoke. Puns. The first cannabis startup to raise big money in Silicon Valley is in danger of burning out. More puns. TechCrunch has learned that pot delivery middleman Eaze has seen unannounced layoffs and has depleted cash reserves, threaten its ability to make payroll or settle its AWS bill. Eaze was forced to raise a bridge round to keep the lights on as it prepares to attempt a major pivot to, quote, touching the plant, end quote, by selling its own marijuana brands through its own depots. TechCrunch spoke with 9 sources with knowledge of Eaze's struggles to piece together this report. If Eaze fails, it could highlight serious growing pains amid the green rush of startups in the marijuana business. Eaze was a startup backed up by some $166 million in funding that once positioned itself as the Uber of pot, a marketplace selling pot and other cannabis products from dispensaries and delivering to consumers. It has recently closed a $15 million bridge round, according to multiple sources. The funding was needed to keep things going. As Eaze struggles to raise its next round of funding amid problems with making decent margins on its current business model, hence it wants to transition to selling its own marijuana instead of just going and picking up other people's marijuana and delivering it to their customers. They want to have their own brands, their own spots to sell it from and to deliver from. They were making the margins a little bit better in a competitive market, especially in a place like California, which has to compete with a well-established unlicensed medical presence and black market presence, and the excessive taxes and regulations in California are just making it almost impossible for legal businesses out there to compete. If you have an 80% markup from taxes and such, then you can't, there's no way they can compete with the guy down the street who just sells it out of his basement or whatever. It's just not, it's not feasible. And I say that a lot. I feel like I say it too much, but the people who need to listen, I guess, are not listening. Those of you who do listen, thank you. I appreciate it. But apparently, you're not important because nothing's changing. You don't have the power that I'm looking for. Talk to the people in power. If you could give me your manager, that'd be a big help. An Eaze spokesman confirmed that the company is low on cash. Sources tell us the company, us being TechCrunch, which laid off some 30 people last summer, is preparing another round of cuts. In the meantime, the spokesman refused to discuss personnel issues, but noted there have been layoffs at many late-stage startups as investors want to see companies cut costs and become more efficient. Eaze is hoping to pull off a verticalization pivot, moving beyond online storefront and delivery of third-party products into sourcing, branding, and dispensing the product directly. So we'll see how that goes, but I mean, they need cash. They're raising cash, but apparently they're going through it quickly, and it's just not. Again, they're competing against an established market of sellers that have a lot of advantages, a lot. Clean price, variety, familiarity, current relationships with the customer base, and you're not going to overcome that by charging 80% more than the people you're competing against. It's not. Most people are not going to say, "Oh, 80% more, is that what you would pay? Oh, look at my money. Where's my wallet?" No, it's not how people shop. It's the last story from Politico.com. Marijuana legalization may hit 40 states. Now what? I don't get that. I don't get that question. First of all, now what is if that happens, then good, and we keep moving forward. We keep moving forward to its 50 states, and federally in all those states have decent marijuana programs, which include not only possession and sales, but growing, home growing, delivery, social use, all that stuff. When all that stuff is federally legal and established in all 50 states, then maybe we can sit back and say, you know what, this is pretty good. But until that day, that's it. That's it. That's the federally and at the state level, and as much as possible within the states, legalization involving possession, sales, home growing, delivery, social use, and all no garbage limits on THC, or you can only buy one edible every 6 months or some crap like that. Decent, the way you can buy alcohol, basically. I mean, if you want a comparison, a real world comparison, the way you can buy alcohol. I guess you could have alcohol delivered. You get beer of the month clubs or whatever. You can certainly go places and drink alcohol. You can go places and buy alcohol. Many places, grocery stores, you can buy alcohol. So if it's as legal as alcohol, then maybe we can say, hey, that's cool. This is a good spot. Improvements will continue after that. We'll take everything we can get, because really there shouldn't be limits on anything, but there will be. We're going to continue to fight that. But at least if it's as legal as alcohol, then you can say, hey, this is comparable at least, and we can work from there. More than 40 U.S. states, from the actual story that I digress from greatly. More than 40 U.S. states could allow some form of legal marijuana by the end of 2020, including Deep Red, Mississippi, and South Dakota, and they're doing it with the help of some conservatives. State lawmakers are teeing up their bills as legislative sessions kick off around the country, and advocates pushing ballot measures are racing to collect and certify signatures to meet the deadlines for getting their questions to voters. Should they succeed, every state could have marijuana laws on the books that deviate from federal law, but people could still be prosecuted if they drive across state lines with their weed. Again, we have the problems with the federal law. But as they talked a lot to Matthew Schweiss, Deputy Director of Marijuana Policy Project, he pointed out that when states legalize, their politicians, their House members and their senators become House members and senators from a state that is legalized. And if they want to represent their constituents, they can fight more for marijuana legalization and to align federal law with their own state laws more than they're doing now. We're cautiously optimistic that we can win more marijuana reform ballot initiatives on one election day than on a previous election day, Schweiss said. He cited growing public support for the issue among both liberals and conservatives. The measures that make the ballot could drive voter turnout at the polls and by extension affect the presidential election. National organizations are getting away from states like Florida, which is not going to see recreational marijuana on the ballot this year, and Ohio. They're instead going to less populous states. Schweiss said the cost of an Ohio campaign, for instance, could cover the cost of 4 to 6 other ballot initiative campaigns. Our first goal is to pass laws in as many places as we can. 2020 is going to be a huge year. I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it, and we'll continue to cover it here on Cannabis News. A lot of stuff going on. A lot of states are attempting marijuana law reform, either legislatively or trying to get enough signatures to get on the ballot, or they're already on the ballot and they're trying to get the campaign together. It's going to be a huge year, and we're going to cover it here 5 days a week. MarijuanaTimes.org, of course. A bunch of print stories, great print stories there, along with this show if you click the video tab. A lot of stuff, a lot of places you can find us. Marijuana Times, searches on YouTube and Vimeo and Apple Podcasts if you want the audio version of the show. Thank you to Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening and continuing to spread the truth about cannabis with this show. We'll see you next time right here on Cannabis News.